Molweni Betunana, Molweni, greetings to anyone out there. Uh, this is your host AV, and this is Disturbing the Peace. And I really wanted to talk about this topic because I feel like it's something I'm passionate about, and it really affects us as maybe in other populations, but I feel like it affects our Abamnyama, black people, a lot more. Like everywhere you go where there's a black population throughout the world, you could go to America, you could go to the Caribbeans, Jamaica, anywhere throughout the world, Africa. It seems as if black people are just poor. Now, bear in mind, I'm talking in terms of the larger population, not necessarily individuals. Like, if you look at the stats anywhere you go, in terms of population incomes, you will find that black people are at the bottom almost everywhere. So I wanted to address, or rather to talk about our perception of money and success and wealth and all of that. Because it seems like even when black people are in the field of finances, financial awareness is not really our thing. We don't really understand or conquer money like that. And it stems from the definition of money because we really don't understand the power of money. Like in economic terms, in layman's terms, like when it comes to economic terms, money is basically a medium of exchange. It's a piece of paper that allows you to move immovable things, goods and services, like to denominate things that would otherwise be a struggle to denominate. Like, say for instance, you want to sell your car and the concept of money doesn't exist. We live in a barter trade world. Who would have enough resources to buy that car? Would they be buying it with shoes, tomatoes, whatever? But the fact that money makes resources portable makes it maybe the most important thing in the world globally. And there's always this notion that money is not everything, money can't buy you happiness. That's bullshit. That's nonsense. Like, it depends on what your definition of happiness is, but money has almost an unnatural power on people. Like, it has an unnatural hold over people when they don't have it. The only time that money does not affect you that much is when you have it in abundance. But if you are poor, money will always dictate your moral decisions, how much of your family you see, the quality of your life. So, why is it that we spend, take this for example, a person who is spiritual, someone who's very spiritual, a church person, how many hours do they spend in church? Not even days, actually, hours. How many hours do they spend with their family, friends, whatnot? How many hours do they spend to themselves just to get acquainted with themselves? And then how many hours do they spend chasing money? More hours than we care to understand, and more hours than we should be spending chasing money. That's what poverty does. You spend your time in service of money rather than the things that you want to spend that money on. Like, you go after money to spend it on family, elevating yourself, growing yourself, but you spend more time chasing that money than going after those things, it seems like we work to live, or rather we live to work. Let me put it that way. We live to work. It seems as if when you are poor, your existence is predicated upon you existing primarily to work, to chase money. And that comes from the fact that you're poor. And now the question becomes, why as a people are we poor? Like for generation upon generation upon generation, even when black people achieve a certain level of wealth, it's nothing big, because that wealth, it's a fragile wealth. You don't know how long it will last, because after that person is gone, what happens? Those are the questions you have. What does that wealth mean to the nation of black people? Like, when black people become rich, they become rich, and even their family becomes sort of alienated from them. They alienate themselves. Their wealth is theirs alone. And I think that this comes from a lot of mistrust based on the differences that we choose to let divide us. If it's not tribalistic, it's language barriers. If it's not that, it's difference in countries. If it's not that, it's blood. Something has to divide us, and we allow it. And we can't unite because of those things. We can't unite, and the very few times that we unite, it's either under a struggle or oppression to overcome that. We are pushed to that unity just to overcome that struggle. Or stokvel for money that will be spent on things that do not necessarily elevate us financially or economically as a people, which is one of the reasons I don't like stokvel, because it's sort of us admitting that we don't have the financial discipline. Because think about what stokvel does. Say it's 3 people in a stokvel. Person number 1, they want to the ones to receive the money first. 200, 200, 200. First month maybe. That person receives 600. 200, 200, 200 again, second month. The second person receives 600. 200, 200, 200. Third person receives 600. What was the point? It's basically another way of saving money. That's it. Nothing beyond, nothing in terms of growth. And that basically stems from our understanding of money, or the lack thereof. Because there's this notion in black communities that putting money in a bank account with very little interest rates is investing. And that's no matter how many times banks tell you an investment account is an investment, it's not. You're basically putting money in a mattress, and those interest rates basically just account for inflation. Basically, they just account for inflation. There's no growth. There's no real growth. And it's because we are afraid of that word risk. Because in reality, the only investment is it's an investment that requires you to spend money, which is business, entrepreneurship, in whatever form. You need to spend money to acquire things that will grow your money, things that you can sell. That's the only investment, selling. You know, all of these things are supposedly passive income. I know a lot of people are getting into the stock market, which is not really a good idea, because think about it. There are banks there are people who have spent years learning finances, involved in those stock markets. The only way to make money is to work for it. Not necessarily work for someone else, but use your mind, your skills, and your resources to generate more money, to sell something, whether it's an idea, a product, whatever. That is how you liberate yourself financially. But now, here's the thing, there's a lot of black people that are in business, and yet still, we don't really seem to prosper. And that kind of stems from generation upon generation upon generation, where money is mystical. It's sort of this thing that we don't talk about. From our parents to our grandparents, it's always been, they make money, bring it home, feed everyone, put a roof over their heads, but never really teach them money. Never teach them how to earn it, how to control it, how to grow it. Never really teach them what money is and the power of money and what it can give you access to. Personally look at how you treat your kids in terms of provision. They do things in your house, like maybe chores, because you tell them to, but maybe if you recognize the opportunity to teach them money, reward them for those chores. In fact, let them know how much you earn, how much goes towards taxes, how much goes towards expenditure, all of that. Teach them money, desensitize the next generation to money, so that it's not this mystical thing. It's something that they fully understand and they fully grasp the concept of. And maybe instead of just handing down life policies, a few decades down the line, it might become a tradition for black people to hand down a legacy. I don't know if maybe someone out there understands what I'm saying, but there's a difference between a legacy and an inheritance. An inheritance is basically maybe tangible things, like, and the things that we seem to conceptualize as assets, which are not really assets: a house, a car, a bank account with money. That's usually what we leave behind. A few policies that will equate to money, with no knowledge of how to turn that money into more money, how to utilize that car to make more money, how to maintain that house, how to minimize the cost of living in that house. We never really equipped the next generation for that. And that's a lack of a legacy. We don't leave a skill behind. Think about the fact that a lot of you have qualifications. You studied something and never bothered to teach your child, because you are under the misconception that they have to choose their own career path, which is another stereotype. The fact that we expect someone to choose one specific career path, And that stems from our understanding of education. Like, education has a very influential or big role when it comes to our understanding of money, success, prosperity. The reality is that we think education is a linear progression. I don't know if you get what I'm saying, maybe. You go to school in search of a piece of paper that confirms that you know what you know. And then that's it. You've chosen this career path and you stick to it. And that's where your education ends. At most, you acquire a PhD in that specific field, and then that's it. But education is more than that. It's a lifelong pursuit of knowledge to elevate and grow yourself. So when you have this knowledge of this qualification and you don't teach your kids what your job is, what it entails, what the benefits are of it, what the pros and cons are, that information dies with you. That piece of paper becomes useless. Your qualification basically might as well be buried with you because you did not pass on that information. And I think that we need to start cultivating a culture of reading and learning, pursuing knowledge, financial, social, scientific. Like, think about the fact that right now we are in the age, like, globally we are entering the age of programming. Programming is playing a crucial role in terms of how global economies are shaped. Electric cars require programming. And most of us don't even have an elementary understanding of what programming is, or what it's capable of, or what its limits are. We know nothing about it because we are not really in a constant pursuit of knowledge. And that's a problem. Like, when you are not actively pursuing knowledge, you encounter a problem and you've never read up on any solution for that problem. But the chances of you actually encountering a problem that you have already read a solution for, when you are someone who is perpetually chasing knowledge, the chances are very high. So I guess what I'm trying to understand is why we can't be united in the pursuit of success and knowledge and teach the next generation what success is and redefine what success is. Because currently, if you look at a majority of black communities and just observe from an observer's eye, you'd come to realize that our definition of success is basically an image of success. Having a fancy house, a fancy car, living a fancy lifestyle, and we call that success. But when you die, your children, the people that you leave behind, are ill-equipped to manage those things that you left behind. You didn't leave a business behind. You didn't leave a social infrastructure for growing or even starting a business behind. You didn't leave financial knowledge. You didn't leave a skill behind. You left that person ill-equipped to basically handle life independently in terms of what they do next, financially or otherwise. Meanwhile, in other communities, the pursuit of knowledge is always there, number one. Number two, kids grow up in a business environment. From a certain age, they just grow up in a business environment. They are taught that business from the beginning up until the end of that business, where it starts. What the first function is, the lowest level in that business, the finances of the business, the managerial aspect of that business. The same children grow up around suppliers of that business, customers of that business. They grow up playing with kids that are suppliers to that business, partners to that business. These children grow up learning the financial aspects of that business. By the time they reach matric, they know that business inside out, and going to varsity is basically a luxury for them. They've learned everything they need to learn in such a way that if their parents were gone tomorrow, they'd be able to take over that business and grow it. But Tina, even when we are in a space of owning a business, we have that notion, Yoguti, I want my kids to live better than I did. And therefore, you want them to live the soft life. Say, for instance, maybe you have a welding business that builds trailers. Your kids don't know how to weld. They don't know what goes into building a trailer, what raw materials you need, what you need to buy, what regulations are needed to build the trailer, the dimensions of the trailer, who the suppliers are, who the main customers are. They don't know. There's no continuity, because that information is lost the moment you are gone. Chances are your business will be sold to someone else, and that someone will take over your legacy because you never taught your kids. That business is foreign to them. Every aspect of that business is basically foreign to them because you never taught them that business. And that's the problem with us. We grew up around, I'm not going to say misinformation, because it's not like the previous generations or our parents and their parents' deceived the coming generations. But the information wasn't there. It was do as I say, don't question it. Which is a detrimental mentality, because in an age of information, do as I say requires blindfolds. And that mentality cannot fly in this day and age. Because now, think about the fact that maybe your child has an idea, a business idea. But because there's so little information, and you yourself are a perpetuation of the lack of a pursuit of knowledge in different fields, your child doesn't know which avenues to pursue to find out more information about this business idea they have. They don't know how much it will cost to start that business. They just have an idea, that's it. But if from an early age your child grew up in a business environment, you actively teaching your child how to pursue business, selling whatever, from an early age, teaching them how to comprehend money from the earliest of ages, teaching them how to do research, all of that. By the time your child reaches a point whereby they have this bold idea, they don't even need you because you've equipped them already. They don't need to come to you and say, I have this idea, but I don't know how to. Because they know how to. They know how to pursue the goal. Because you've equipped them. And that's one of the major problems in the black community. People earn, they come back home with the money, they leave their children ignorant of what goes into making that money. And it's a perpetual cycle. It's an ongoing cycle. Because of that, your children will have the same problem. They'll make money just to spend money, not to grow money, not to elevate themselves. You might find that in the lifespan of a black person, that person goes to school, acquires a qualification, starts working at the same level, maybe gets promoted 3 times, and then retires. That's it. All of that knowledge now becomes useless, and that's a reflection of also our government as a people. Because think about the fact that a lot of people retire with a lot of knowledge that could be useful. That's a reflection of us as a people, that we don't really know how to quantify value, how to use it, how to utilize it. Because in most cases, people that have retired can still work, can still be consultants, can still train the next generation. No one wants to be an idle mind. Retired people, I think, would still like to pass on their knowledge, But that's beside the point. I digress, I think. Let's maybe look at our concepts of wealth and why we seem to think that having a fancy house and a car and all of those things is defined as wealth. Because these things are liabilities. If you're not using them for business purposes, if they're not bringing money in, they're liabilities. We seem to think that liabilities are assets. Putting money in a bank account and calling it an investment, that money is no longer an investment, it's a liability, because it's losing money, it's losing value. It's sitting there, 200,000 rands. You put it in a bank account. If you'd have taken that money and pursued a business venture, how much more money would that money have made you? How much more money would you have made growing that 200,000 in a business environment rather than a savings account called an investment? So that's money lost. We think that's an asset, an investment account, and it's money being lost. We're basically throwing money away. We're giving it away to banks because we fear risk. We lack the understanding of the concept of an asset. In layman's terms, the simplest way to define it: if you're losing money because of it, it's a liability. If you're gaining money because of it, it's an asset. That's it. And maybe we need to actively and consciously take stock of what could be helping us generate money and what could be making us lose money. And maybe take stock of also our psychology. I believe that the brain it's a muscle. It's also a muscle. It needs practice. If you start practicing the pursuit of success, like define success for yourself and then pursue success, like chase growth in terms of knowledge, money, your social standing, chase that growth, see where it gets you, and maybe pass on what you've learned to your kids instead of letting information die. Because I don't think maybe we understand how valuable information is, because we don't really know how to monetize it. unless we are monetizing it for someone else. We seem to be either consumers or employees. In most environments, we consume or we are employed. We are not really in a space where we create and we sell and we employ. We are employees, and that needs to change. I don't know what I'm trying to say, maybe, but if maybe you have more to add, please comment, like, subscribe, share this video, and maybe let's change our understanding of money and what it can do for us. Anyway, thanks, guys.